change the way I approached things and do only documentaries instead, a more meaningful deep dive into the issues that I cared about. And I truly love.
Cool. So, in 2018, Southern had claimed allegiance to two radical identitarian alt-right groups, Defend Europe and Generation Identity, specifically its French brand. Their activities have included interfering with humanitarian vessels, trying to rescue migrants by shooting flares at them, and yelling hate speech. Oh, God. It was a simpler time. A time when we no longer had to deal with Lauren Southern. But she's back. Not Canada's worst mistake. Not Canada's most egregious mistake. But one of the many Canadians of whom I basically have dedicated my life towards debunking and vilifying and demonstrating everything false in their narrative. Between her, Stephen Crowder, Stefan Molyneux, Clean Up Your Room guy. Well, he's not really relevant, but Clean Up Your Room guy's daughter, Michaela, all of them, they're all Canadian. And even a little bit of Ted Cruz. You can blame us for just a smidge, a crumb of Ted Cruz. So I apologize, as is customary for a Canadian to do. I apologize sincerely. But she's back. Now, I thought Lauren Southern had just left because she had recently given birth, and also there was a lot of, let's just say, heat coming upon her and a lot of her ideology after the New Zealand shooter started talking a lot about great replacement theories and stuff like that, stuff that she has been quite pivotal in propagating. Between her and Stefan Molyneux, the idea of the great replacement theory kind of got global traction. And, of course, great replacement theory for the Coles Notes version is the idea that whites are being systematically replaced with other races, either through immigration policies or through other stranger conspiracy theories like birth rates and stuff like that. And they usually use one country as an example, South Africa, as proof that this is happening. And of course, that proof is pretty easily debunked when you look at the rates in which South African farmers, who the landowners are overwhelmingly white. That's kind of what happens under, both imperial conquest and apartheid and other things like this. But the idea that they're now being attacked en masse, those attacks actually are technically going down year by year, and yet they still used it. Well, they used it as an example. Anyways, that's all Lauren Southern classic. But she's back. She returned today with a video called Why I Left, Why I'm Back. So, bully.
Hey, everyone.
Australia's bushfires.
Unemployment to its highest level since the Great Depression.
Overnight, Minneapolis on fire. Protesters leaving an op.
Good year to take off, I suppose. Seriously, though, I hope.
Oh, wow. Just instantly, all those feelings of how annoyed I am every single time she speaks or I see her on screen have returned. Like, overwhelmingly, like almost just like a tsunami to the senses. Every single one. Senses I didn't know I had, like an 8th and 9th sense, are now screaming out in agony that I have to listen to this.
I hope you all have been keeping. It's been just over 1 year since I stepped away from social media. Some of you may not have even noticed that I was gone. I dropped Borderless, left a small note, and dipped. And I suppose because I was so vague.
Which is one way of putting, I dropped a documentary that vilifies people, and then I just left social media for a little while, and then, just let it do its thing. Whether or not I still collected money from either donations and or ad revenue, if I was allowed to have ad revenue, maybe. But yeah, just walked away.
I really left still there when the screen is off. There was definitely a point where I don't think I could have said yes to this, and there are probably far too many people that are Gen Z or millennial like me that have been in that boat before. Which brings me to another point, and that is family was not the only reason.
You're not Gen Z. You're not even close. I mean, that's kind of sad. People that are Gen Zs or millennials, like me.
I took a step back, although it was a main one. I planned to take an extended break from the internet and media for a while anyways, just to get my head out of the fishbowl and observe with a sober view the world that I was a part of. And to be real with you guys, the world I was a part of, especially earlier on in my YouTube career, was a very unhealthy one. And I mean, to be fair, most of you have probably been on Twitter before, so pointing out the toxicity of political or even just internet culture in general is probably the least shocking thing you have heard this year. Wow, the internet is toxic and it's bad for you. Shocking revelation.
Are you going to address all the shit you were putting out there? You're one of the architects. You're one of the architects of the Great Replacement theory. Like, you were stoking the fires. You were fanning the flames. I was like, yeah, I made some videos, had some laughs, had a good time, and then, like all this, I don't know, strange, toxic narratives just popped up all around me. Internet, am I right?
Lauren. Seriously though, I do want to be clear, actually, that when I'm talking about this toxic culture, especially in politics, I am not talking about regular everyday conservatives or regular liberals. What I am talking about is the forever onliners, the people who have lost themselves to a character or entire personality composed of partisan talking points, the extremists who can no longer see the humanity in their political opponents or even just other groups based on race or gender, the leaders of all these movements that are fighting over the last shreds of a dwindling social talking point market, and the cults that have seemingly formed where everyone views themselves as the hero in the story, whilst anyone on the other side is irredeemable.
So, sorry, just to quote the prophet. As far as I'm concerned, Hitler was just a social justice warrior who happened to get freaky amounts of power and actually implement his hashtag kill all Jews, the predecessor to hashtag kill all men worldview. That was a quote from Lauren Southern. If you only read a history book, you'd know opening your gates to the barbarians leads to the downfall of great civilizations. OK symbol, Lauren Southern. Again. For those of you who are confused by the point of this video, the point is that France is changing forever due to mass immigration. The people in this video were not speaking French. The women were not wearing their hair in French braids. They had scarves on. France will not be France for long. If there were tons of people coming here, waving the French flag, denouncing Islamic extremism, and assimilating totally no one would have these issues. That's not what's happening. These are enclaves. They're not speaking English. They're voting for more mass immigration and welfare. Again, that's Lauren Southern. Lauren Southern on nationalism. So get that stupid little mustache out of your head. I'm not the Nazi you're looking for. And nationalism is more than just, I don't know, it's just not that bad. It's awesome. Particularly this kind of pan-Western nationalism I'm talking about here, which actually doesn't have a precedent of either positive or negative kind in history. It's simply too ambitious. But unlike the utopian fever dream that is globalism, I think this kind of nationalism has a chance of defining world politics for centuries. Why? Because it conforms to human nature. Indeed, once you strip away the examples of people abusing nationalism for the sake of their own mental illness, you eventually realize that the superiority of globalism is actually based on one of the most healthy parts of human nature, the preference for a group that supports each other like a family. Still Lauren Southern. Oh, and another problem I have with Hitler, he fawned over Muslims, more sycophantly than Justin Trudeau. Bibi Netanyahu was right on point when he said Hitler decided on the Holocaust partly because the Middle Eastern Muslims told him they didn't want the Jews expelled into the region. That's some commitment to showing how much you're not an Islamophobe. And to give little Adolf his due, he wasn't. He was actually more of an Islamophile, truth be told. He even wished that he was Muslim himself. Yes, that's right. On top of being a whiny art student who scapegoated an allegedly privileged race for all his problems and talked a bunch of violent, angry people into siding with him like any good social justice warrior, Hitler wished he was also Muslim. He might have been a nationalist by technicality, but he was more of the new Black Panther style of nationalist than the Trump style. Frankly, I think today he'd be one of those low-T Tumblr crazies who join ISIS and end up on the news. Again, Lauren said that. And I'm going to keep going, by the way, because I just want this to be one of those things where if she's coming back and talking about how, both sides, whataboutism, well, there was some good people on this side of the aisle, there's some good people on this side of the aisle, and mostly, I mean, there's good liberals, there's good conservatives, and I got stuck in the fray, and I didn't want to be there. It's like, it's your fault, right? But anyways, let's keep going. On the alt-right. Hashtag alt-right means I don't have to be ashamed of my heritage. Lauren Southern. It doesn't take a very long time, by the way, to pull up all of these. You just have to type in Lauren Southern and then quotes in the Googles, and you'll see quite a bevy of them. I mean, original, some of these, I'll give her that. I've never heard of anyone claim that Hitler wasn't an Islamophile who was actually a social justice warrior. Hitler, the greatest known social justice warrior of all time. So yeah.
It's gone. Then, of course, there's just the 24-hour news cycle in general, which seems to make anyone involved just focus in on people's worst moments, their mental breakdowns and bad arguments like a shark searching for blood. We have entered an age where your worst 2 minutes will define you for the rest of your life, because that's what people want to click on. A world void of nuance. One where even serious political debate has just been substituted for partisan sneering and mockery. Argumentum ad cringe, if you will, where we seem to have taken the position that if something can be mocked, that it can't possibly be right, as if human instinct about what's laughable is somehow divinely inspired. This whole mess, this whole just disaster that I was a part of, it is something that I began realizing in people around me, and then I started to see within myself as well, that I was actively assisting in creating this culture of entertainment and hot take politics. So
Interesting.
I think it was mid-2018, I decided I wanted to change the way I approached things and do only documentaries instead, a more meaningful deep dive into the issues that I cared about. And I truly love.
Cool. So, in 2018, Southern had claimed allegiance to two radical identitarian alt-right groups, Defend Europe and Generation Identity, specifically its French brand. Their activities have included interfering with humanitarian vessels, trying to rescue migrants by shooting flares at them, and yelling hate speech. In a Twitter video, she claimed she called for 4chan's infamous /poll board to join in on the fight. These groups have been labeled as anti-Islam, anti-immigration factions that wish to protect Europeans from the threat of an invasion. Besides the obvious reactionary claims, they also justified their xenophobia on the pretense of wishing to stop the alleged human trafficking of refugees drowning in the sea caused by corrupt humanitarian aid workers who were supposedly cooperative with their smugglers, trying to sink boats of refugees themselves instead. As expected, international human rights activists have widely condemned these groups and their actions, including Lauren Southern's documentaries on them. Perhaps it's not surprising that Patreon later deleted Southern's account on the grounds that she was raising funds in order to take part in activities that are likely to cause the loss of life.
Was already telling one side of the story, that it was my job to tell the other. But in reality, it should be everyone's job to show both. And just because you see others not doing it doesn't mean you should partake in a childish tit for tat. Otherwise, you're not going to get the real story at all. You need a full picture in order to come to meaningful, insightful conclusions.
So I guess she's going to evolve from a far-right piece of shit to a centrist piece of shit. That, I guess, is the evolution we're about to witness here. Fine people on both sides.
And this is one of the big reasons that I've decided to come back now. I am seeing absolute chaos going on in the world and very little room for nuance or genuine thoughtful content. Our news is getting summed up by spliced Twitter videos made to promote one cause or another, name-calling, doxing, hashtag wars. It's really hard to watch. And I really believe that people are longing for a more sober approach, because the world is a lot more complex than just all cops bad, all cops good, post black square or you're a racist, or black people are all just looters and rioters. I'm not some radical centrist here, but I think we all know deep down these massive cultural issues have human stories to them, to every side of them. And too often we prefer to just ignore the humanity in the stories that don't quite fit with our narrative. And in my traveling and my on-the-ground work with Borderless, even just life experience over this last year, a big way that I've changed personally, and one of the best things I've learned, is to approach things with a sense of, I don't know everything. Because none of us do. I think the people in charge of public discourse in our society too often are expected to be experts in everything. Celebrities, politicians, social commentators were literally coached to avoid ever saying the phrase, I don't know. You find a way around it, you give a super general answer, or you read the answer your publicist wrote for you.
Southern rejects the alt-right label despite agreeing with many of its goals. She stated, "It's not hard to sympathize with a lot of the alt-right causes, and I do align with them, a lot of them. I keep a healthy skepticism of any movement that I join or sympathize with or just talk about, and the alt-right certainly deserves some healthy skepticism." When described as an alt-right journalist by Thunderfoot, Southern stated, "While I certainly have crossover with an alt-right on a decent amount of subjects, I don't focus on white identity as one of my main topics. And because most of the alt-right do refer to me as alt-right, many of them on the alt-right would just find the description of me as alt-right to be inaccurate and laughable." But it does, again, this quote, "Alt-right means I don't need to be ashamed of my heritage."
And you better be able to give a smile and a word to every social and political crisis the news pops out that week, or you're force them to make statements through gritted teeth on recent political issues because it's bad for their career if they don't. And
so, 9 minutes and 27 seconds in, and there's the rub, everybody. Did you feel it? Are you nicely seasoned with some Lauren Southern spices? Because there it is. We're being forced. It's forced wokenness upon us. That's right. Some of my friends, they're putting up these black squares because if they don't, people will call them racist. And then publicists are telling my other friends that they should actually do it as well. And they should support this whole, I don't know, Black Lives Matter thing. Of course, she's going to do that thing, right? She's not going to name it by name. You get what I'm saying, ... right?
And quite frankly, it doesn't matter what your cause is to me, even if it's something I'm extremely supportive of, even if it's something super basic that we should all understand and agree on. At no point in a well-functioning society should every single person, every single corporation, every single politician, beauty group, appliance shop, and even your Xbox feel the need to put out a political statement for fear of the masses taking their silence as betrayal and socially or even financially ostracizing and destroying them. Compelled speech just never really ends well. Because what happens when that message isn't so kind? What happens when you create a culture like this and that message becomes one that is violent or oppressive and no one is allowed to question it and everyone is afraid of speaking up?
Hey, let's take one quick second to talk about the Great Replacement. This is the video, of course, that she was referring to, not her last video, Borderless, but the Great Replacement was one of the big ones that she was also referencing. So the crux is Southern reveals several reasons why the Great Replacement is occurring. First, white people hate themselves because many white people feel that replacing themselves will relieve the guilt of past crimes. And like almost every other culture in the world, they want to preserve itself and remain homogenous. Europeans actively invite the destruction of their tradition. Okay. Second is replacism, the idea that all people are interchangeable and can be replaced without consequence. We wonder what ideology would suggest that different human groups are not interchangeable. Okay. And the third, birth rates. The West taxes people into oblivion to the point that they can't afford to get married, buy a house, or have lots of kids, and then we spend their tax dollars on importing people and paying for their welfare with large families. That is, of course, absurd, but...
...by the public right now. And, I also want to mention that I also don't see the possibility for growth when I'm constricted by the expectations of an online right-wing tribe, that I hold certain beliefs or I'm not a part of them anymore. Because I also have questions and criticisms within the right as well. There are some issues there. I want to just genuinely look at the world, even if it bursts my bubble of what my preconceived notions may have been. So maybe because I've been gone so long and I've kind of made these statements, people will want some sort of statement on where my views are at now.
Well, ooh, yeah, that's a good freeze frame. So this is it, the perfect center. This is, I guess, Sam Harris's wet dream come to life. Sam Harris has spoke a number of times about becoming the new center. So this is, it sounds very sensible. It's logical. It's balanced, as all things should be, right? I'm not going to, succumb to the right-wing mob telling me what I need to do. I'm also going to not listen to this, woke hysteria that's coming from society telling me that apparently my beliefs aren't congruent to humanity or something like that. I'm going to listen to neither. See, I can say it both ways. And on top of which, I'm going to come forward and bring you the truth. It's going to be the unfiltered truth. It's going to come directly from this to this to this into there. And that's going to be the Lorne Southern experience from here on out. I'm not going to listen to those wild flash mobs telling me to delete videos from, way back when I may have espoused some beliefs that may or may not have led to a couple of people committing some mass murders because they actually thought that their race was being replaced with another one because of some of my writing and press tours that I did with Stefan Molyneux, amongst other people. But again, it had nothing to do with that. This was just because just online toxic behavior, Let's separate ourselves. Enlightened centrism. It's the only way forward.
There's definitely no overhead cost, security, flights, hotels, sleepless nights, or getting arrested by the Turkish police or military. Hell, man, documentaries are stressful. There was one Airbnb we stayed in Spain where we literally had to boil if you'd like, you can go and check out the links below this video and join me on Subscribestar because I can't really be on Patreon, can I? I also know...
Why is that again? Why can't you be on Patreon? Are you going to mention that? That'd be neat if you could bring it up. The reason why Patreon is we can't support someone whose views might actually endanger human life. So we're going to take you off the platform. It's no way of knowing really why.
Although I really look forward to doing my second favorite thing, which is creating again and hopefully bringing back some meaningful, sane conversation.
Why I left and why I'm back. It took her 17 minutes to basically say one thing. And
Before we bombard you with all of our shameless links, we want you to bombard us. Do you have a worker co-op business or local union you'd like us to advertise at the end of our episode for free? So, if you'd like ears on your worker co-op, go down to weareserfs.com. And while you're there, join the Discord because it's filled with righteous guys, gals, and MPals. Finally, come check us out on Twitch Live 5 days a week by going to twitch.tv/theserftv. Yeah. To our lords, Ricky Pilgrim, I'm Raft, Tomospone, Nine Tails Cosmic Fox, Hans Josephine, and Corpse Harvester, we bow meekly for your pleasure. To our Knights of the Round Table, Josh Mickelson, Dylan Byte, Zach Christensen, Todd Buckingham, Todd Lajeunesse, Clement Chetskoff, Cooper Pilot, aka the Man with Large Balls, Political Puppy, Nick Davis, Ali May, and Alan R., we salute you. And to our many merchants and farmers, you have our undying loyalty.